Millman, your host with White Labs, an e-commerce marketing agency. Today's guest I have is Rick. Rick, feel free to introduce yourself and let our viewers know a little bit about your background.
Yeah, thanks for having me. My name is Rick Patri, and I'm the founder of a brand called MONSTERBASS. And MONSTERBASS is a community of anglers that share a love for bass fishing. We provide the tools, the content, the motivation, everything that someone could need to get outside, become a better angler, and have more fun fishing. We're about 5 years old, and when people think about bass fishing, they kind of look at me like, what are you, crazy? The interesting thing is that more Americans fish than play golf and tennis combined. It's the third most participatory sport in the country. The market exceeds 50 billion. So it's a pretty good sized market.
100%. What inspired you to start MONSTERBASS?
It's interesting. I was running an agency, and I had someone come into the office, and they had an idea for a website in the fishing space, and they had a large budget. And I remember thinking to myself, this is the craziest idea I've ever heard. And I excused myself. I went into the bathroom, and I quickly Googled what it was they wanted to do. And I found this all over the place, and it was free, and they wanted to build a fishing report website. And I couldn't get behind it. And I'm a big believer in karma. And so I gave them the name of 2-3 other agencies, but it kept, the idea of fishing stuck in my head. Because if you gave my brother one day left on this planet, the kid would go fishing. And so I sat on this for a couple weeks, and then finally I decided to go to a tournament, the Bassmaster Classic. They call it the Super Bowl of bass fishing. In fact, I just came back from Tulsa, Oklahoma this past weekend. And when you think about the actual Super Bowl, right, like 100,000 people show up to watch the game. Well, in Tulsa this past weekend, 140,000 people showed up to watch 40 guys catch 4-pound fish on a lake. And then it's the Consumer Expo. And so I did that back in like 2000. I can't even remember the year, but I went to this, and I remember my very first time sitting there, and I went to the arena, and it was very much, and at the time Bassmaster was owned by ESPN. And so I'm sitting in the arena, and it was like the WWE. I kid you not, like somebody's up on stage, and they're announcing the next person, and then the curtains open, and the Toyota Tundra drives, pulls in with a boat, makes a lap. The guy's up on stage, and he looks like a NASCAR driver. He's got logos everywhere. And I'm thinking to myself, this is insane, right? And I'm watching people in the audience with fans, and I'm thinking, and again, as a guy who, I spent most of my time in bigger cities, I'm thinking, what is going on here? And then the magic happened, right? I watched as the guy got up, and he talked about like, the sonar system that he was using. And then the next guy got up and talked about it. And I watched as every guy in the audience was like, baby, I need one of those sonar systems for Father's Day. You got to get me one of those. And I watched this happen for hours. And so I went back to those guys and I said, listen, I like I said, big believer in karma. I don't think your idea is the greatest, but I've got another idea. And that's when I decided to come up with the previous version of my company. I helped a group start a very similar product. And then I left because I realized we could do it better, raise a little bit of money, and started MONSTERBASS.
There we go. So obviously fishing is such a large, so who is your target audience, you would say, for this?
Recreational freshwater fishermen across the country.
Okay. I know you're definitely different, but what makes you different and better than any other of your competitors out there?
Yeah, great questions. Our competitors will send you a mystery subscription. Yeah. They'll tell you it's curated, but it's not. And what we do is we actually break the country into regions, and we send you the best baits for the places you like to fish, because the lakes in Florida are very different than the ones in Michigan, right?
Yep.
and half the baits that you throw in Michigan, you can't throw in Florida because there's too much grass. The water's not deep enough. There's all these reasons why the baits aren't going to work, right? Because bass fishing, a lot's dependent upon the structure of the body of water, the temperature of the water. There's a variety of factors. And so I felt it was best to break the country into regions, give you baits specific for the places and the time of year that you're fishing, wrap that with educational content to show you actually how to use that properly, with a goal of helping you catch your personal best, your biggest fish. And so that's what we were known for. And then along the way, I realized, we were working with all the best brands in the industry. So why shouldn't we be manufacturing and creating our own products and incorporating them into the subscription offering as well? So over time, we've evolved from just a subscription box to a community that not only has a subscription box component, but we manufacture our own baits, rods, and everything that you need to have a successful day out on.
Awesome. What is your best selling box or even your products? What are your best selling products?
Yeah, from a subscription standpoint, we offer multiple sizes, and we do offer a bass box and a multi-species box, because a lot of people like to fish for bass, but there's a ton of people that also like to fish for, bass, panfish, and so on. It's probably our platinum series. We've got 3 different price points because we realize also that this market, there's a low barrier to entry, and the economic diversity of our market varies greatly, because you can, I can roll down the South and there are, I can see an entire neighborhood of double wide trailers with $80,000 bass boats in their driveway.
Yeah.
It's insane. And so we've got the entry, and because the market is so diverse, right? Because, you can have a kid that just wants to do this and he's spending mom's or grandma's money. So we've got a price point that's perfect for them. And then for the person that, I've got my own disposable income and I want to step up and get something a little bit bigger, a little more robust, we've got our platinum series, which is $39 a month.
Awesome. That's great. What are some challenges? Because most of our listeners are entrepreneurs like yourself and e-commerce brands. What are some challenges you face, and how'd you overcome them?
There's a few challenges that come to mind. COVID was obviously a challenge for everybody. In our industry, it was one of the few things. It was one of the few things that you could social distance and do publicly while COVID was taking place. Yeah. So while everyone else was starting to see a decline, we saw a massive increase in business. And when you're buying the numbers that we're buying, you need to be buying 6 to 12 months in advance. So COVID hits, our sales skyrocket, and now we're trying to buy product for a year out. And in some cases, the forecast just, when it came back down, we had purchased for, what we thought was going to be continued growth. And so we were left with quite a bit of inventory. Now, thankfully, I hedged my bets and I didn't buy into the fact that we were going to, that it was going to continue to be this way. And our competitors didn't. I mean, we had a competitor that was in the space that was funded to like $53 million, and they were the market leader, and they they recently had an asset sale because the COVID really hit them. So it's forecasting and buying, especially when you're an entrepreneur, right? You can't afford to have that much cash sitting on a warehouse floor in inventory. So we found a lot of creative ways to use that inventory, and by building bundles and kits and working with our partners, we've been able to be really successful with that. The other challenge we've had is really about, we live in this day and age where everything's Facebook marketing and Google marketing, and you can build a really good, big, sizable digital footprint. But this industry is very much hand-to-hand, face-to-face. And so it was interesting, we attended the Bassmaster Classic this weekend, 100,000 people. And I would tell you that the majority of the people that walk through those doors didn't know who we were. Yeah. And when I said, well, and I would mention our competitor, and I said, well, have you heard of them? And they're like, no, and it really solidified the fact that we need, from a marketing perspective, we cannot discount traditional marketing methods, consumer expos and trade shows, where I can stand someone, look at them, I make eye-to-eye contact, hand them my product, tell them about it, what's new and unique. And the more people that actually try the product, the more likely they are to actually end up buying more. And so for us, it's been the balance between brand awareness and building and driving sales. right? Because you can really get caught up in chasing dollars. When you get caught up in chasing dollars, a lot of times what happens is you forget about the brand. And so there has to be that healthy mix. And I think that's a challenge for entrepreneurs, because when you're cash strapped, and you can see that you've got whatever 12 months, 6 months, whatever your cash runway is, when you see that, I think it's tough for entrepreneurs. I know it was tough for me early on to focus on brand and not get caught up on, well, we got to really, drive intermittent sales to keep the lights going.
That's 100%. Well, and you mentioned a little bit of like Facebook. What's been some effective marketing strategies for yourself?
Yeah, we've relied heavily on Facebook, Google. I mean, our digital ad buying is a majority of what we do.
Mm-hmm.
We do work with some influencers, and I find that, you asked me about challenges. I kind of forgot about this. I mean, influencers, you can have a big audience, but it doesn't mean you're going to move product.
Yeah.
And I think the challenge is, you can get caught up with people that have really big audiences, but it doesn't actually convert to dollars, because you have to think about why they're there and what attracted them to that channel to subscribe or follow them, to give them the numbers that justify them calling themselves an influencer.
Yeah.
So
100%. That makes sense. I get it. So what is your future plan for the brand and yourself?
yeah, so the future plan for us is we're really focused on our retail footprint. Like I said before, we started a subscription box. We've evolved into a community that has a subscription box component, but we have really, best in class content. And we also make really, really amazing fishing tackle. Whether it's been our, hard baits, soft plastics, or even our fishing rods, they've done really well. And direct to consumer sales has been highly profitable for us. But we also realize that as we expand our footprint, you can only do so much from a direct to consumer standpoint. And so what we're looking to do is really grow our retail footprint and find retailers that we can work with. Along the way, we're going to acquire a couple brands, because one of the if you're struggling to get into retail, one of the things that I came to the conclusion of was, we're going to go and acquire another brand that's already in retail. And once we're in and we've got those relationships established with a brand that's had 5 or 10 years of retail sales and experience, then we can go to them with, hey, you're already selling A, why don't you sell B? So that's a path that we've gone down.
That makes sense. So do you have any advice for any entrepreneurs looking to enter the fishing industry?
Yeah, I see a lot of bright-eyed, bushy-tailed people wanting to enter the recreational fishing industry.
Mm-hmm.
And it's definitely not a get-rich-quick, scheme. It's a crowded marketplace, and I run across, because I have a subscription box, I work with all the brands in the industry. So I'm in contact with everybody from big household brand names like Z-Man and Strike King, all the way down to mom and pop shops like Biz Baits. And so what I would say is, if you're going to do this, I would make sure that this is your side hustle when you start, unless you get funded, because it's going to be it's going to be a lengthy road, and you've got to be willing to endure the ups and downs that this industry has, because it's very cyclical, right? Because when you think about the country, and you think about that some states have actual licensed dates by which you can go fishing, you've got some states where it's snow and you can only fish half the year. And then you want to look at the cyclical nature of the fact that, like, in the fall, people put down their fishing poles and pick up their guns and their bows and they go fishing, right? So there's a lot of ups and downs in revenue generation, and you've got to be willing to stomach it and have the capacity to do it. And the other thing I would say is make sure that you're taking lots of little chances, instead of betting it all on the farm, betting the whole farm on one and then swinging and a miss. I mean, I would say try lots of little things. And when you start to see success in one, double down there and see if that works. But don't just think that you're going to build an entire brand on Facebook, because as someone that's spent the majority of the last 4 years relying heavily on digital marketing, I can tell you that the traditional marketing did not get lost in the shuffle.
Mm-hmm. Makes total sense, Rick. Well, I really appreciate learning about your journey and your brand, and it's awesome, man. I appreciate you coming on. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Definitely. Thank you.
You got it.